Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Brand Is You podcast with me, Robyn Savage. It's so nice to have you here. We're getting back into some strategy conversations today. So, we're going to talk about mastering a content series. All right. How to use a series to really increase engagement and get people coming back for more. Okay. So, when we talk about using a series, this is a really super powerful tool in content marketing that can really transform your brand's reach and connection with your audience. All right. So a series is a really helpful tool for anyone. If you're a coach, if you're the founder of a big company, you could tell your brand origin story through a series. If you're a creator, you can use part 1, part 2, and part 3 of a creative process to create a series. It will boost your engagement, as I mentioned. It'll create this sense of anticipation for people like, ooh, I can't wait to hear more, or I can't wait to see what comes next, or I can't wait to hear the next part of the story. And it's going to deepen the level of value that you provide and deliver to your client and audience, because they get to go on this journey with you and learn and engage with these different sections, these different parts, these different chapters of your process or of your story or of X, Y, and Z. Okay. So let's talk about why content series work so well, and more importantly, how you can create a series that fits your brand perfectly, because obviously the brand is you. So when you create a series, we want it to reflect you, okay? As with everything that we do here inside the Brand Is You. So let's talk about why content series work so well. First and foremost, they're a really great way to help you get consistent and stay consistent. So, well, you're showing up consistently, because hello, if a series has 3 parts, then you've got to you've got to show up for all 3 parts. But it also helps your audience get consistent, because they keep coming back to check in on what you're going to say or share next. So just like people binge watching a show on Netflix, a well-planned series within your brand can create that same sense of, ooh, what's next? And anticipation is a really great feeling for your brand to create for people, because that feeling of anticipation is going to naturally trigger their response to want to come back to check you out again and again and again. Okay. So we're creating a way for you to become consistent by getting you to show up for this series. And then we're also helping your audience consistently come back, because they are now anticipating what you're going to share next. Win-win. All right. Content series also work because they help you build authority, and they give your brand a certain level of depth. So a series allows you to go deep on a particular topic, or deep into a certain story, that, and in a way that positions you as a go-to expert, or a go-to storyteller, or a go-to coach, or mom, or founder, or creative, while allowing your audience to absorb all of this information over time. So often we post one post, we post one part of the story, or we'll share one part of the process. Whereas a series helps develop your authority, because you're actually going deeper into the thing that you're talking about. Okay. And that provides more depth. And the more depth you provide, the more value people are going to get. So a series really works in your favor here. Series also work because of engagement and connection. We've already touched on this, but let's talk about it a little bit more. So by delivering content in a series format, here's what happens. You create multiple points of connection. Your audience has many opportunities to come back and engage, learn, and see your expertise in action. Okay. We love this. We love this because engagement is great for your brand. Okay. And connection is eventually what leads to conversion. Without connection, it's really hard to convert. So, a series is a really great way to get people to engage, to deepen that connection that eventually leads to more conversions. So, we're seeing how series can be really beneficial here. Yeah. Lastly, content series really work because they can really become a pillar for your brand that helps your audience recognize who you are, okay, helps you build a reputation, and it helps people connect with your sharing, like your style of sharing, your style of leading, what your values are, what you really care about, what your vision is, where you've been, what you've overcome. So we create this sense of brand alignment. When we create a series, we're allowing people to really see these parts of us. And then through this sort of conversation, your audience begins to anticipate what you're going to share next. And not in the same sense as the anticipation of like, ooh, I can't wait to binge the next thing. I can't wait to, listen to the next part of this story. This type of anticipation is actually born through brand recognition. Okay. And this means that people get to familiarize themselves with your brand so that they learn what to expect from you. Okay. So one of the most important things when you're building a brand is that over time, your brand starts to feel really familiar to people. Like, I know when I go to Marie Forleo's page that I'm going to learn about business and also see a little bit of her life. I know when I go to Lizzo's brand, I'm going to hear really great music and see her talk about body confidence. I know when I go to Jess's page, I'm going to learn something about my health and she's going to be out in nature. I know that when right? You see where I'm going with this. So this type of anticipation is not like hype anticipation. It's like, ooh, I'm going to go back to Robyn's page because I want to get inspired about my brand right now. And so this creates this really steady sense of familiarity and like knowing inside your brand that is really, really important to build your audience and maintain that connection over time. And everything that we talk about here, kind of does loop back to conversion, but I will reiterate this one more time for you. Like, when people become familiar with your brand voice, your brand stories, your brand process, when they become familiar with who you are, what your values are, your beliefs are, etc., that really does help build a conversion, which again leads to conversion. So I always talk about conversion because ultimately what we want here is we want our brands and businesses to work, and our brands and businesses don't work if there is no conversion. So everything that I'm teaching you is to help you get to a place where, things are converting and things are really working for you. You're feeling confident and excited about showing up for your brand, and, you're getting the results. So let's talk about how to plan an effective series. This is important because what we don't want to do when you're creating a series is, you don't want it to be crappy. No one wants to watch a crappy TV show, right? No one wants to read the next chapter of a crappy book. So how do you plan a really, really effective series? Here are some steps, okay? First and foremost, you want to identify the core theme of the series. So the recent series that I just shared was a 3-part series on the podcast about my own personal transformation over the last year. So you're going to start with a theme. My theme was transformation, okay? And this theme is going to tie back to your brand mission, your audience's needs, okay, what they want to hear, what they want to know about, and or like what your expertise is about. If it's a more educational series, then obviously it's going to tie back to your zone of genius and your expertise. So you want to think about what your audience is currently interested in and what aligns with your recent offerings. Okay. What I've got coming up in my brand is all about storytelling. It's all about building authentic brands. It's all about showing up consistently and regularly. It's all about using our voice and platforms to build these connections and convert. So the theme that I shared was transformation. in the series that I just shared. And now I'm recording a podcast that's helping you create your series. And what I'm launching on the back end of all of this is a new course called Insta Success that really helps you learn how to do these things for yourself. Okay. So planning the core theme is really important. You want it to be really directly related to what's currently going on for you inside your brand, and bonus points if it connects to something that you're selling, obviously, right? So setting clear objectives is step number 2, like setting clear, tangible goals and outcomes for this series. What do you want from the series? Is it to grow awareness? Is it to build trust? Is it to educate? Is it to lead to a specific offer? Okay. I will say that the recent series that I shared was really just to like re-engage with my audience, re-engage with you. It had been a while since I shared my story, right? It had been a while since I had been back on the podcast. It'd been a minute since I let you guys really in on a lot of the things that I was kind of going through. So this was to really connect with you guys. Now, bonus points, because I do have this brand new digital course launching that really does tie into using our platforms as a way to build our brands, to convert and connect. So that was a bonus point for me. But I didn't create this series to sell, obviously, because if you did tune into that series, you know that I wasn't selling anything ever at all throughout that series. Okay. So you want to set these clear objectives and goals for your series so that you know exactly what will make it successful for you on the other side. And I know that my series was very successful in building connections because I had dozens and dozens and dozens of emails, text messages, voice notes, and DMs. So check, it worked. Okay. Next, you want to create an episode framework. Okay. Outline the number of parts or episodes or chapters or videos, okay, that you need in order to really outline and complete this whole series. Okay. So you want to outline the main parts that go into each episode or each video. Okay. And then you want to outline any actionable steps that you want people to be taking throughout this series. So you can map this out from beginning to end. I like 3 series because it has a clear, this is the beginning, this is the middle, and this is the end. So 3 series work really well. I've also done a 5-part series, 1 episode of a podcast or 1 kind of day of this series has dropped every day, Monday to Friday. That seems to work really well too, because people are kind of engaged then with the series throughout the week. I do find if you're going to plan a series, taking it too long or taking it over a weekend tends to lose people. So you'll notice that engagement goes down throughout your series. So keeping it short to like a 3-part series, I find most effective. Okay. But going into the creation of your series with a clear kind of outline for how you want this series to go is really going to help you in the creation phase. Okay. Next, you want to define your unique tone or like the angle of this series. So you don't want it to just be like 3 parts of this science lab, or 3-part story of my own personal transformation. Like, what's the angle here? Okay. What's the general story? What's the kind of big aha that people are going to take away? Okay. So I would highly, highly recommend for your series using a theme. Okay. And that was point 1, right? Was like identify what your core theme is. The theme is really important because, again, that's telling people what they're going to learn or what they're going to get from showing up for this series or tuning into it. So definitely lean on that theme here when you're defining your unique tone and angle. And then also think about the style in which you want to really create this series. Okay. Do you want it to be like, this dramatic story? And my story was pretty dramatic because it just naturally was dramatic with like this huge year for me, but I also leaned into the drama a little bit, like the hardest year of my life, the moment, the moment that I made this like totally irrational choice, and the thing that I learned, like the big breakthrough moment at the end. Okay. That was my unique tone, was like, let's make this super dramatic and lean into the messiness of the human experience. All right. So before you start recording your series or before it goes live, you want to ask yourself, like, what's the unique spin? What's the kind of, angle? Is this the word I keep coming back to? Like, what's the angle here? Okay. Um, that's going to align with your brand voice, but also get people coming back for more. Okay. A few things, like it could be like really funny, like it could be a funny series. It could be, again, like I said, something behind the scenes where you're taking people on this process. So, maybe your angle is like, come with me and spend a week with me inside the shop and see how I actually create these mugs. Right? Come see things behind the scenes that no one has ever seen before. That would be a great fresh angle for a series. Okay. Or, a unique tone could be something that feels really secret. Like, hey guys, if you join me inside this series, I'm going to tell you a secret that no one else in my community knows. Right? That could be a really unique tone. Like, hey, let's you and me just like come have this conversation. So you can get playful with the way that you deliver your series to really engage your audience in something a little bit fresh and new. Okay. Lastly, to plan your effective series, what you want to do is you want to plan for engagement. Okay, plan for engagement. So think about how you're going to keep the conversation going between episodes. This is a really big one because, like I said, the engagement in the series will naturally drop off through, like, as the series moves along. But it's really important for you as the leader of this series to keep engagement going. So some things that I recommend are to let people know when the next episode or video or whatever you want to call it is coming out. So in my series, I released a podcast Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I let people know on Sunday that part one was coming on Monday. So I built the hype. And then on Monday, when part one dropped, I sent out an email. And in that email, I was like, listen to part one and come back for part two on Wednesday. On Wednesday, part two dropped, same thing. Guys, this is the big breakthrough moment. On Friday, I tell you where we went next. So come back for part three when we'll wrap this series up. Okay. So you always want to tell people when they can expect the next part of this series to drop so that they can anticipate it and then engage with it. If people don't know when the next episode is coming, they can't plan for it. And that feeling of anticipation is really short-lived, right? They're living their lives, they're out doing their thing. So if they don't know when to expect that next episode, then they're not gonna come back and just check to see, like, oh, like maybe a couple people will do that, like your diehard fans, but most people will forget about it and just kind of fall off and your engagement will drop. So always tell people when the next episode is dropping. Also, like, have some fun with this. Like on your Instagram, for example, you could say in your Instagram stories, like part two coming tomorrow, and you could use the countdown sticker. Like next episode drops in like 12 hours. I did this. I had a lot of fun with it in my Instagram stories, and the engagement was super high. All right. Next thing, use like all parts of your brand channels to really activate this series in a bunch of different ways. So I was posting to my feed about this series so that people who just landed on my profile would see that there was a series in process. I used my Instagram stories to engage with this series or to get people to engage with the series. I dropped the link to the podcast, every single day this week, so to drive traffic towards the podcast. And I used my email list to encourage people to go tune in with the series on the podcast there as well. Okay, so you always want to be planning for engagement. How am I going to get people to actually listen to this series is the question that you should ask yourself. Okay, you want to keep them invested. Another great thing is sending out teasers. Okay. I also did this. I took little video clips from each podcast, shared them to my Instagram stories. I shared a couple teasers in my feed. When you share teasers, it allows your audience to get emotionally invested in something that is coming. So they see the teaser, they're like, oh my gosh, this looks so good. And then they'll want to tune into the rest. All right, does that sound good? Lastly, let's talk for a second just about like the recording process and like the actual creation process of your series. Because I know that a lot of you can like, you'll hear me talk about these things, and then when it comes to actually doing it, it can feel a little bit tricky. So I'm going to try and provide you with as much information here as I can. When possible, batch record. Okay. The nice thing about batch recording, the nice thing about batch recording your podcasts series or your video series or whatever type of series you're recording, even if it's an email series, okay, if you batch write this, it's going to help keep your tone and energy consistent throughout the entire series. Okay. So say, for example, you have a 3-part series that's on, I'm going to talk to you about sleep training your babies in this 3-part series. In part 1, we're going to talk about your needs as a mom, how you need to like honor yourself in order to like nourish your body the best to successfully breastfeed. In part 2, I'm going to talk to you about your baby, what your baby needs from you in order to breastfeed, and like the latching process and all of that. And in part 3, we'll wrap it up with some tips on how to maintain healthy breastfeeding and like really enjoy the process rather than, you know, it feeling like a chore. So stay tuned inside this series, and like you're going to learn all about breastfeeding your baby. Okay. Now, if I show up on Monday to record part 1 of the series and I'm having a great day and I'm super energized and I'm so excited, then the tone of that video is obviously excited, high vibe, high energy. And then if I don't batch record, we risk recording the second part of the process when you're having like an off day or a drab day or a, you know, like day where you're just not feeling your best. And then all of a sudden your tone is like, hey guys, welcome back to part 2. Like today we're going to talk about this. And people are like, oh, wait a minute. She was super excited and like high energy and, you know, using her hands and really engaging in episode 1. And now in episode 2, I'm kind of like, oh, I don't, there's like a lack of consistency and her personality feels different. And I'm not really engaging with her the same way that I was. So this happens to us. We are human beings, okay? It's like a normal part of what we do as entrepreneurs, as content creators, is this like flux and flow in our own energy and our moods and our language and our mindset and all of these things. But when you are working on a series, one of the best things you can do is maintain this consistent voice and tone throughout the whole series so that when people plug into it, they're getting this really consistent experience of your brand. Okay. So batch recording will help you as the creator of this series maintain a level of consistency that builds a familiarity and trust with your audience member throughout the entire series. Okay. Got it? Secondly, always plan for teasers. I know that teasers can be tricky, but if you're batch recording, then what I suggest is like the best parts of the video that you just recorded, just write down on a piece of paper, like the approximate time that you think a great teaser was recorded. So it, you know, if you remember being about 5 minutes in, just write that down so that you can then go back to that part of the video and grab that teaser. What happens a lot of the time is that we record the video, and I don't know if this happens to you. It happens to me all the time. I will record the video, and then at the end, I'm like, I can't even remember what I said. Like, what was that video about again? So right when you're done recording, it will save you a lot of time. You won't have to go back and rewatch the entire video if you kind of write down these little timestamps for yourself that you know you want to go back and use as teasers. You can send them to your video editors, your podcast producer, your social media manager, whoever it is, and say like around the 5-minute mark, around the 15-minute mark, there was this like thing that I said about blank. Can you pull that out for the teaser? So planning for teasers is helpful. Okay. Another thing to consider before you record is this plan for engagement, right? The planning for engagement is something that you are going to actively have to talk about and encourage while you record the series. So if you haven't planned for it, then the chances that you're just naturally going to encourage people to engage and interact are pretty slim, because you'll just be like in your teaching at that point. And then you'll get to the end and be like, oh man, I forgot to tell people to like respond to this video in an email, or I forgot to ask people to like leave a comment on the podcast episode, or nuts, I forgot to tell people to buy the course. Okay. So planning for the engagement and actually like putting it in part of your script, or making a little post-it note and like sticking it on your laptop as you record, like don't forget call to action, right? That's gonna help you make sure that you don't skip that part. And that part is so important, because that is what's gonna help you achieve the objectives that you set for this series in the first place. Okay. If your goal for this series is to sell, and then you forget to drop the call to action or to sell in the episode, then you're not going to meet your goal with this series. So absolutely, definitely plan for the engagement, and like use those, that plan to get people to interact with the series. Do this like before you even hit record. How am I going to get people to engage? Cool. Lastly, I want you to consider this while you're planning for your series. Really good series have lasting value. Okay. So think about ways that you can turn it into a blog post, or a downloadable guide, or a lead magnet. Okay. Added value for your audience, even a mini course if your series is educational. Okay. So don't think of a series as like a one-time thing. Think about it as this ongoing piece of content that you can use in the future. So say the series that I choose to do next is a 3-part series on building your personal brand, and I drop this on the podcast. Well, I may choose in, 6 months from now to take down those podcast episodes and turn them into a lead magnet that I use to convert cold audience to warm audience. And then that's a really great way to give that series a new life. So you can repurpose your series in multiple ways, which is always just the best. Obviously, repurposing content saves you time and energy. So plan for that. Okay. I think that's about it. The last thing that I want to say is that, always thinking about these kind of different ways that you can use content, like in okay, hold on. Let me start that again. Okay. Let's just think about the way that you can diversify your content in your brand, right? And a series is a really great way for you to do that. So many of us get bored posting the same stuff all the time. We come to record podcast episodes, we're like, oh, what will I talk about today? And then we go to post on Instagram, we're like, oh God, here we go, just another post. So using a series is a really fun way for you to create valuable content, engaging content, in a bit of a different, fun, dynamic way for you and your audience. Okay. So if you haven't tried a series yet, now is a really great time. Start small. Okay. It doesn't have to be huge. Start maybe with a 3-part series, just like I did, right? On the podcast. Pick your theme, break it up, map it all out, plan for engagement. Don't forget to set your objectives, like what do you want this to do for you, and just see how your audience responds. My bet is that you're going to get pretty fun feedback from this series, and it's something that you can do over and over and over again. All right. So let me know what you thought of this episode, if this tip helped you out. And if you do end up planning a series, let me know about it. Let me know how it goes. Let me know if you liked it, what your audience thought about it, if it converts, all of those fun things. And if you enjoyed this episode, share it. Share it with some of your entrepreneurial friends. Subscribe to the Brand Is You podcast. We've got episodes coming out every Monday for you. We're back on schedule. And if you don't mind, and if you haven't done it yet, please go and leave a review of the Brand Is You podcast on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Like and follow. And until next time, guys, keep building your brands, keep doing your work. The brand is you, you know? Let's become it one day at a time. I love you so much, and I will see you soon. Ciao.